Vetiver Sensuel by Mancera. I have no clue where I want to start with this. And I didn't take notes intentionally because with the memoir, it's not about making sure you hear everything that you need to know. It's about thinking about all the things that initially come up to you about fragrances that you are absolutely in love with. And so I may leave a lot of stuff out. I might make love to the track in a certain vein of conversation and not turn back from it. Whatever you get is what you get. I have no clue what I'm going to say about these fragrances when I do these memoirs. So I'm sitting down right now with no script, just as curious as you guys are on what I'm going to say about this fragrance. I feel there's a dilemma with fragrances today where, for reasons sometimes I can't quite articulate, masculine scents are dying. And I don't know how I feel about it because I've only just now began to unpack what makes me uncomfortable about it. Because in one sense, it's weird to claim things like earthiness and different characteristics of scent as belonging to masculinity. And yet culturally, they do. It doesn't make it an absolute truth. It's just a way that we understand the world. It's a way that we categorize things to make things easy, and then sometimes things get difficult because things get forgotten about as we make labels and categories and terms. And in the moment it's convenient because it accounts for something we care about, but what happens when something unaccounted for wants to be counted for? And so this whole unisex conversation of fragrances being pushed more and more unisex has some merit to it, that I don't just, in the name of preserving what I deem to be masculine and worthy of masculinity, in the pursuit of that, I don't want to cancel out valid points about the genderless concept of what scent is, if that makes sense. Vetiver Sensuel, back to the good stuff. Man, this scent is awesome. And I bring up the masculinity because there are things and directions in fragrance that are being taken now that I feel like are stripping away the very things that made masculine scents masculine, and also stripping away a lot of rich complexity that just is not in scents today. I don't know all of the notes, things like oak moss, aromatics, herbals, different facets of earthiness, vetiver, woods. There's just so many fragrances today that pack a lot of scent but are absolutely spineless. They have no body, they have no spatial elements, they're not transportive anymore. They're not one with nature even. They're not even a part of nature sometimes. This is not supposed to be that conversation, but the reason I want to partly bring it up is because Vetiver Sensuel seems to accomplish what a lot of these kind of McDonald's niche attempts at making something extremely modern, they always leave out the spine and body of the fragrance. And the masculinity. And yet this is so commercially mass appealing to me, but doesn't forego the body and the earthiness and the masculinity that it so desperately should have. Without it, it would just be every other citrus fragrance, every other amber fragrance, every other fruity fragrance, every other aquatic fragrance. Vetiver is so crucial, and I think you guys would be intrigued to do a deep dive and just start to look at Fragrantica and the note pyramid more, because vetiver is an intimidating note. I don't think vetiver forwardness is a mass appealing concept. It's a very niche, narrow concept. But the funny thing about it is that vetiver has been used in perfumery since the very beginning. It's one of the notes we know the most about and have flexed and exercised the versatility of this note so much. It is the foundation of almost all of perfumery in terms of giving dimension, complexity, earthiness, backbone, personality. It's a one note. You could take just vetiver and do so much with it. And so it pains me sometimes because a lot of people don't love vetiver. They like the way it's safely used, which is to be tucked in the base, almost non-existent, just be there to give a little bit of dimension, a little bit of complexity, a little bit of depth. But when that thing starts creeping above the 15-20% noticeability, too earthy, too grassy, too soapy, too inky, and I get the sentiment, because I do think vetiver forwardness has a limitation in terms of what is pleasing and what is super niche and narrow. And unfortunately, what does that have to do with Vetiver Sensuel? You guys are thinking, where the heck is he going with this memoir? Where I'm going with it is, vetiver is probably the one note in my fragrance collection that I have the most of. I've scoured the earth of vetiver, and I know I'm just getting started with it, but I have probably touched well over 50 vetiver forward fragrances, and many of my fragrances that aren't vetiver forward have vetiver in them. I know what vetiver looks like tucked away. I know what vetiver forwardness looks like. I know all the different dimensions of vetiver. I've had vetiver purist scents. I've had vetiver remix and vetiver celebration fragrances. I have them all. And so I know what it can do, and because of everything I just blabbed on about, a lot of vetiver fragrances utterly suck. I'm just gonna keep it real with you. As a vetiver lover, I'm only madly in love with maybe 5 of them so far. And even within that 5, there's similarities between each of them that make it redundant to own more than maybe 2, unless you just love the nuance so much so that you're almost just obsessed with it. And that's not quite me. All right. I'm trying to give you guys concepts so you can see where my head is at as I talk about this fragrance right here. Okay, we've laid a couple of ground concepts about vetiver that I think are important to understand what I am about to say, even though I have no clue what I'm about to say. Okay. People say a lot of times with fragrances, this fragrance is sunshine in a bottle. No, it's not. This fragrance is sunshine in a bottle. There's something so fundamentally necessary to me about the earth and the elements, the sky, the air, the earth, the rain, the snow, the elements, that is so important to me in perfumery. I don't know if I'm at the point where I'm a purist, where it's like, if I can't detect something from the ground, the sky, or the sun, I won't enjoy a fragrance. But when they do it right, there's a level of complexity, a level of transportedness, a level of tranquility, peace, invigoration, there's all these more things that come into play as far as what a scent can make you feel. And a couple scents that smell really close to this. Vetiver Parfum Cologne from Roja. Guerlain's Vetiver, mainly the Parfum, but even the EDP. This is better to me. 120 ml, I got this bottle for $70. It's the lowest I've seen it. 120 ml of juice. I've concluded with my own self that I will never not own this fragrance. An abundance of it. I've probably already said this one way or another. Vetiver can be rendered a lot of different ways, and the problem is that when you go vetiver purist with a fragrance, it winds up feeling like you can't do a lot with it. It's too earthy, it's too only earth. And then when you just tuck it somewhere, you don't really get it, so you forget about it. Elysium is kind of one of these great examples where you can smell vetiver in the base, and it's got vetiver and amber, but it's so much more about the citrus and the grapefruit and all that up top and in the heart notes that you don't think of Elysium as a vetiver scent in the same way that you think about Vetiver Parfum Cologne or Terre de Hermes or anything like that. This is a real middle-of-the-road vetiver. It's super grounded. It has like a grassiness to it, which vetiver is a tall grass, but sometimes it can come off woody. That's why a lot of times it's associated with woody notes, or it's providing a woody base to a fragrance. So you immediately smell this closeness to the grass, which is the part where it's like, if that's all they did, then it's like a vetiver purist scent, and it would scare a lot of people away. But what they so cleverly did is just unleash the fruit juices of citrus. You know, the lime, the lemon, maybe even the orange, the grapefruit. I get this ambery, hot, warm, juicy grapefruit liminess. But then you get lemon too, but the lemon is almost like lemongrass. And I don't know what lemongrass smells like, guys. I'm gonna keep it real with you. But it has this grassiness and this lemoniness and this hot, radiant amber sitting all in the heart and base. And over top of it, you get this beam of light, sunshiny, grapefruity, limey, lemon experience that is just like so juicy. And they just douse the earthiness of the vetiver with this fragrance. I love it compared to something like Vetiver Parfum Cologne from Roja, which takes more of a clean, pretty, sparkly approach to vetiver. And it's nice and it's airy and it's safe and it's the highest form of that. You know, it's very reminiscent of Grey Vetiver. It's very reminiscent of Guerlain Vetiver. But it's this pretty, sparkly vetiver that isn't very daring, but it's very good. Like, it is the epitome of vetiver today, or what you want vetiver to be today. It's very safe. Guerlain attempts to do what Vetiver Sensuel has done, but it lacks this burst of radiant light. It's sharp and it's bold and it's present and it's more traditional, and there is a modernness because they've reformulated it several times to give it that radiant forwardness, but it's not as contemporary as this to me. I mean, this just nails it. There's a difference between sharp and robust. Sharp is just like, phew, 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 you know, but robust is just like, this radiant weight. If you like a fragrance like Wulong Cha, this is taking it to another level, because Wulong Cha kind of, I call it the monk fragrance. You know, it's very therapeutic. You know, you're sitting in the mountains, you smell the lemon, the tea, the grass, and it's similar, but this just drives the radiant, juicy citricness of it. You know, it's in the vein, well, not in the vein, but just think of all of your just radiant fragrances, even Amberful, Wulong Cha X, Montclair's, I think it's Sunrise Pour Homme, Ferragamo Bright Leather, Terre d'Hermès, the Eau Vetiver or whatever, the Eau Givraise, even just juicy citrus fragrances that you love. Again, there's a lot of juicy citrus fragrances out there with no earthy backbone. They're just these kind of tinkly, Louis Vuitton feeling, Happy Meal juicy fragrances that don't feel very manly. They feel like dead unisex because there's just no base, there's no earth, there's no life to the fragrance. They smell like they're made in a lab, you know? And that's due to the lack of vetiver, the lack of woods, the lack of quality materials. And yet a fragrance like Wulong Cha or Terre d'Hermès, again, because those utilize the vetiver, they ground the fragrances a bit more, but let me put it like this, vetiver must be balanced perfectly in vetiver forwardness. I think the safe vetiver amount for a vetiver lovers type of fragrance is like 50%, maybe 60, because you have to counterbalance. Doesn't matter if you're going the clean, soapy, inky, earthy, metallic, woody take on the vetiver, you have to counterbalance it with something just as intense to really smooth it out, round it out, give it more personality, modernize it. I was just smelling Lunar Vetiver. There's so many good vetiver fragrances, guys. Encre Noir a la Extreme, Encre Noir Sport, Terre d'Hermès, the vetiver, Eau Vetiver, or something like that. Vetiveria from Ormond Jane. Anything from La Lique has intense vetiver in it. Vetiver from Roja, Lunar Vetiver from Amor Oud, Guerlain. Frederick Malle has a vetiver, original vetiver from Creed. The Grey Vetiver series. Sycamore. There's just so, we have an abundance of vetiver, but guys, when I tell you this stands above them all to me as something that maintains the purest nature of showcasing vetiver, and yet if I had to show people who I think might be new to vetiver or intimidated by vetiver, or even vetiver haters, if I had to convince them of one last shot to give vetiver, I would hold this pretty much above all of them. Longevity, sillage. It's so good. I just want to spray it. Atomizer, 11 out of 10. This is just a missile of sillage. 120 ml of juice, and you really don't need it. Even if you wanted to be light, you could 3 to 4 spray it. If you wanted to be intense, you could 10 to 15 spray this, because it might be a little heavy at first, but it'll just increase the performance and the scent bubble for being longer. But it just checks all the boxes, guys. It's a masculine fragrance. It's super modern and contemporary. It lasts forever. The sillage is so addicting. It's invigorating. It's a mood lifter. Again, beam of light, zesty citric sunshine in a bottle, but grounded in such a manly classiness. It's invigorating. It's bright. It's happy. It's positivity, but it's classical, and it's traditional even, and it's just everything in a bottle that you would need. The mood lifter side of it is so cool, because when you could put a fragrance on that just sings to you and just puts you at peace, but also like lifts you up. And again, like the feeling of going outside and the light is just shining on your face, and it's raising your eyebrows, and it's making you hopeful, but it also has the base of confidence in the what the vetiver is doing in the base, that is not just a happy, invigorating, fun time fragrance. It's also can be serious, can be classy, can be sophisticated, woody, little bit smoky. Not smoky as in, like how we think of incense, just that earthy, woody kind of bitterness, but only on like a 2%, just enough to make it not all the way play. You could wear this super casually. It can be upscale casual. It could be business casual. It could be business formal. It could just be a daytime date fragrance. Even sundown, due to the amber and the warmth of the grapefruit lime feeling, it has that sundown, warm, hot amberness to it, where it could be a sundown type of cool down. Gosh, I just love this fragrance. And the more I think about it, at the $70 price point, I mean, this is a vetiver that you won't really feel the need to look around at other vetiver offerings. It's a dumb reach vetiver that doesn't sacrifice any of the purest ideals of vetiver, but it also isn't old smelling. It smells like a fragrance that at least was made in the last 5-10 years and could even have been made yesterday and would still rock the bells. You know what I'm saying? Saying this is a 10 out of 10 isn't enough for me, guys. This is like all-star vetiver for me. This is one of the most, and let's just shut up about vetiver for half a second. I have to make it a vetiver conversation because I know the immediate impulse of a lot of you is to be like, oh, okay, it's a memoir, but it's a vetiver fragrance. So, I'm not into vetiver. That's not really my tea. So that's one that SB is kind of just in his own little world, or that's for vetiver lovers, right? No, guys, absolutely not. Guys, it's so good. The only thing I think is if you're a young guy, maybe like 20 and down, the maturity that vetiver offers a fragrance, you might not even be ready for vetiver forward fragrances in general across the board. And in that sense, I would point you to something safe like Grey Vetiver Eau de Parfum or Vetiver Parfum Cologne by Roja, because they're more airy, they're less earthy. But they smell just like this, but they're more sparkling champagniness, at least as far as Roja's. Then when you get to Tom Ford's, his is more of this like high class, clean cut, sooty vetiver, but it's still safe. It's funny, Terre de Hermes is actually more daring to me than Tom Ford and Roja and Guerlain. Personally, especially with the Guerlain reformulations and whatnot. But I'm going on a tangent here. Is there anything else I really want to tell you about this? I love to just smell this. I love to just put it in the air. It just sings to you all day long. It's not this is where I want to end on. It is flashy though. I love when a fragrance doesn't have to do obvious fragrance stuff to be seen. It doesn't have to be injected with vanilla. It doesn't have to smell like an orange. It doesn't, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be loaded with spices and wow factor. It just is amazing. It's just in its quality, in its blend. This fragrance isn't, the opening doesn't tell everything. It's what it does throughout the day that is just as important and just as a part of the euphoric experience of this fragrance that is so appreciated, because it's not like a Baccarat or a Tom Ford Noir Extreme or something where it just out the box is just trying to get your attention. It's an aura fragrance where if I walk around the room long enough, you will be drawn to it. It's a whisper that turns into a radiant, just it envelops you. It doesn't climax all in the opening. It builds and builds and builds and it goes somewhere. And I appreciate that so much about the fragrance, because that's what confidence in a bottle is, right? It's not just something you spray in the air and it's just like Febreze, you know, it's gonna mask every problem you have with each squirt, and it's gonna get you the chicks, and it's gonna get you that job. Just put it in the air. You don't have to be anything. No, this fragrance calls you to something, calls you to purpose, calls you to manhood. And it doesn't put it all out there right away. It's a fragrance where you kind of have to get close. I feel like it sillages and it leaves itself everywhere, but it doesn't, if you were just standing still, it's not traveling. It is a aura bubble type of fragrance by about 4 feet, I would say, on skin, but it's not trying to dance and do the most. It is there, it is bright, it is radiant, and if you get within its range, it'll absolutely go after you and present itself. And I think that's perfect allure when it comes to fragrances. Fragrances that you can't figure out the guy from across the room and download his whole MO. No, the fragrance, the initial smell of it on somebody is curiosity. And that curiosity brings you to that man. And there he is. And then the fragrance blooms and it becomes a compliment to you, not you, and not being there for you. You know what I'm saying? And that is an amazing thing with fragrance, where it's just about just as much about the person wearing it as it is the scent. You know, I think some scents, whether it's right or wrong, I don't care. Some scents, when you smell them, you don't even care about the person wearing it. You're so enveloped by the scent, you just want to go buy the scent, and the guy is just a vessel of that experience, and you don't even remember what he looks like. No, this scent allows for the collaboration between the wearer and the scent to equally enjoy this experience, and for people to not get all of that right up front and be just as much a part of the experience, and let the fragrance and the person talk to them and then be a part of the experience. Oh man, I feel like I've left so much out on this fragrance. But this is probably, right now in my journey, easily in my top 10 favorite fragrances of all time. I've smelled thousands of fragrances. I am a vetiver lover, disclaimer, but even as a vetiver lover, there aren't many vetivers I would recommend to you guys at this point, because I am so picky about vetiver. And I feel like, even like with vanilla, as you guys will see in the future with future memoirs, I'm so picky about where vanilla should be in a fragrance, and what else should be going on around it, and what makes vanilla good. And a lot of fragrances have vanilla, but nothing special. Everything's so overdone. And vetiver, unfortunately, is just like that. Everybody is doing a purist vetiver, or they're trying to just put enough of it in the fragrance to get all the benefits from it without actually smelling it. And this does not do that. It is vetiver. It is a vetiver fragrance. And yet it is modern and full of other stuff that you can enjoy while still fully recognizing that it is a vetiver fragrance. Everything in this fragrance is contributing to it being a vetiver fragrance. in a way that's so modern and yet doesn't sacrifice its backbone. All right, guys, please get your nose on it. If there's any vetiver fragrance you should ever try, start here. You'll probably end there as well.